Hi, I'm Walter, the Dutch Mentor. Welcome back to the Smart Performance Podcast, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive problem solving, R for rhythmic operation, T for building a thriving community, and of course, P for performance. I'm really happy to have Emilia here today because we're going to talk about a topic of emotional intelligence. Just think about your nervous system is on fire just before you go into that very important meeting or interview and you're not sure what to do. How can I regulate it? Well, that means you actually have to get in touch with your feelings, which is not everybody's forte or something that is really like, oh, those are soft skills. I don't really need them. But many things are lost on the periphery and on the margins, and that could be because your system is on fire. So let's talk about that today. But before we get started, Emilia, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and why you are an expert in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I am Emilia Smith, and we are here ready to go hot on fire in terms of my own nervous system. So I am a neurodivergent leader. And with that neurodivergency, having lost my memory at 4 years old, going through chronic memory loss, I had to essentially learn not only how to be a human, but how to be a leader when you don't have memory. So that led me down the rabbit hole of trauma recovery programs and neuroscience. And with that education that I had, essentially working with business owners internationally and locally, and I've had the pleasure, the opportunity to work with so many individuals, teams, and couples in my work on nervous system, emotional intelligence. And right now, like I said, really hot is regulation. So when we're in the business meeting, when we're with our teams, and when we're with our intimate partners, to be able to be sustainable business leaders, what is it that we do, the habits that we have, the way in which we think, and more importantly, the emotions that we know how to regulate, that allows us to actually be the most effective leaders in our worlds.
Excellent. I love that topic. It is really, really important. We should not ignore it. But before we go into the topic itself, you used the word neurodivergent. So I
Yes.
talked about it in other podcasts before. I would like to know from your perspective, who is neurodivergent and why is it so very important to not ignore these people? Because they might be your hidden talents and the hidden diamonds.
Ooh, I love that. And as a matter of fact, I hold the belief, I think that they neurodivergent. So they're individuals that think slightly different than the quote unquote normal. And when I say normal, for anyone that's listening to this, just audio, I did a little bit of the finger air quotes because there really is no such thing as normal unless you're looking at it from a statistical standpoint. Then we can talk about it. So neurodivergence essentially think, process, and experience the world slightly differently. Why? The number one reason from my perspective and my experience is because their brain is quite literally formed a little bit differently, right? So the hardware that they're working with, for lack of better words, has them processing their emotions, their experiences slightly differently than, let's say, your 10 people that are in the same meeting or same experience. And so I also agree that I think that that's not only the hidden talents, but as it comes to the artificial intelligence that is reaching every single tip of our worlds right now, I think that we have collective intelligence that we're not tapping into, specifically those who are neurodivergent and those who think differently. So you have a business problem or you need a solution. The typical mind is not going to be able to be as valuable in the future of business from my perspective because you have that mind, for lack of better words, being replicable in AI models, LLM models, and therefore your neurospicy or neurodivergent individuals are going to come at it from a different angle.
Well said. And having grown up with a father who definitely would have been labeled today as neurodivergent, savant, brilliant man, quite capable, but he was a little different, right?
Yeah.
But again, we see a lot of these people around us, and often we label them as weird, or
For sure.
I can't
Yeah.
hide that. But I think it's a missed opportunity often because, especially in the world of data analytics,
Mm,
people who are neurodivergent can see things that you and I cannot see per se. And
mm.
so don't underestimate the shy, quiet person who's a little different from us as somebody who's not quite capable. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think it is important as an action item, as a leader. Don't close your mind to the natural biases, the subconscious biases that we have. By the way, I am fighting with my left hand over here, a 100-pound Great Dane puppy that is getting my attention. But listen, I don't
That's
believe in
impressive.
multitasking, but it is something that is I need to do. Otherwise, we're not going to get through this without barking. But that's the beautiful
Respect.
about the show. We don't edit anything. It's a raw, real conversation. So let's go into the topic itself, the scary word, feeling. Why do we need to feel anything in the world of business?
It's so funny because that word feeling, it's like when I talk to business leaders, it's like, yeah, we don't need to have that as a topic of our development. I don't know, like, how can we avoid this are the conversations that I tend to have. Feelings are so critical. And I feel like coming from a woman, people are going to roll their eyes. But I know that female leadership and the way in which females lead is slightly different. Why? Because one of the biggest thing is that they actually don't have this weird aversion for the large majority to feelings. They actually know the power in our feelings. So the feelings, you can essentially break it down a little bit scientifically into the thoughts, the physiological sensations, and the actual, belief or behaviors that reinforce that. So whether you're thinking from a constructed theory of emotions or something else, feelings are important, and it doesn't take someone who studies this in and out to really understand it. When you're in a conversation with someone else, you have feelings. They're always happening. They're unconscious. And whether or not you're acting on those feelings and using them to your advantage as a superpower, or you're trying to suppress them, whether you're showing up on a podcast or whether you're showing up with your team members, that's a totally different type of leader. And so they're important because they're they're data points that we can understand about ourselves. And honestly, from my perspective, I think that the feelings that we have at all times are signals that not enough leaders, with all the love, are really leveraging, right? They're data points that really help instruct what is the right course of action, what is the wrong course of action, and can really twist us up if we just put them at the side before we walk into a meeting.
So sounds great. I'm a guy. I'm role playing over here, by the way.
For sure.
I'm a guy. Feelings. Show me the pain point by not feeling.
Yeah.
So what am I missing out? Can you tell me that in numbers? Can you make sense out of for my male brain that is just not really a touch, so to speak?
Absolutely. So a lot of the time I work with male engineers, and they're the typical, Emilia, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. This is all lingo, jingo that I don't know how to keep up with. So I say, what if I were to tell you that 90 to 95% of your successful interactions when it comes to human beings, which when you're working with other human beings, there's always feelings happening. 90 to 95% of that is actually going to help you have better communication, be better in terms of you guys more effective in productivity. When you put feelings at the door, you're actually hindering, at some cases, specific productivity metrics. So like, for example, then I have the engineers kick back to me and say, Emilia, well, my male brain doesn't even know how to go into that lingo. So it's actually going to take me way more time to understand my feelings and put them on the table. And in my industry, you're going to be made fun of. They're going to call you some names. So let's, how can we actually make this practical in my world? And what I say to them is, well, if you have someone on the other end of that table or in your team that actually is a feeler, and you're just writing that off, you're not actually leveraging the talent of the feelings that are coming in. And so you need to be able to understand what is the difference between a sad or a disappointed feeling. Because if you're in a leadership position, number one, you're modeling the emotional intelligence for your team who are looking up to you. But number two, on top of that, you're literally not tapping into the potential of not just feelings, but emotions and unconscious thoughts that are literally within your own team.
I think creativity is also killed when you don't allow yourself to feel, right? So again, there's another material impact. So often we look at things that, in dollars and cents and, investing time and effort into it. I think it is, it's a failed opportunity to really learn from each other, right? It's where, I think Maya Angelou's quote comes to mind, right? Is that it's not what you do for me, it's but how you make me feel. It is the feeling part on the end of the day that's going to make you and I become partners and establish a long-term relationship that can have mutual benefit, rather than if it is purely transactional. You can leave, for that matter, dollars on the table, so to speak. So let's transition now to what can we do? What are some of the actionable things in 5 minutes or less that people need to do in order to get to feel and to express themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So one business owner that I have in mind comes to mind. He's far more of the logistician, engineer type brain. And I will quote him directly. Yeah, those emotions, they don't really have a place here. High pressure, high productivity. We're looking at numbers, KPIs, systems. This is not necessarily something, Emilia, get this out of here. And I said, listen, I hear you. I hear you. We need to have the numbers, the KPIs, the data, the systems, the processes. And to be real, this is a high pressure environment. And so when you're going in, just steamrolling your staff, who, by the way, nonstop turnover, high levels of attrition, which what does that result to? A lot of money wasted. When we look at that alone, you're coming in with a nervous system that is dysregulated, that in all fairness is direct, and that's great, but not great for everyone. And so what is the practical tactical that I gave him that I think is applicable to the large majority of cases? Self-awareness to where is your nervous system state at. So depending on how you want to frame this, I think that you can have that sympathetic activated nervous system that is just on fire, like in the morning. Like right now, I'm on fire. I'm ready to go. Catch me at 8 o'clock and I will be zonked, ready to roll over and just stay on my couch with my own dogs. And every single person, depending on their neurochemistry and how their nervous system works, is essentially going into engagement at a different nervous system tune. And so the practical tactical that I gave him is, where is your nervous system right now? I gave him a measurement, obviously, because he needs that 0 to 10, 10 being the highest on fire ever and highly engaging, and a 0 being I'm practically in a dorsal collapse where I don't want to talk to anyone. When you're in a 10 out of 10 or a 5 to 10, I said, you are coming at your staff as if you're coming to their throat. It's not because of who you are or what you're doing, but it's how you're going about that communication. So the feeling that you have, which is on fire or frustration, when you have a mismatch from your team, really that's because you're unconsciously making them unsafe by your to the point, direct, no feelings, keep them to the side type communication. And that is sending them into a fight or flight, which they then show up afraid of you. And I understand that order and hierarchy is really important, especially depending on the generation, the setting, the context, the industry. However, if you have staff that is unconsciously afraid of you because you have no interpersonal awareness of how your nervous system, what you're feeling, maybe you're frustrated from what happened to your truck or what happened in your world and you brought that in, if you don't have awareness to how that's impacting other nervous systems, that level of blind ignorance is going to impact the nervous systems that you work with. So practical every single day. What I had him do was literally before you go into work, I want you to, in your car, wherever you go, make sure that you do a quick self-check-in. So the self-check-in is 3-part. Number 1, what are the emotions that you're carrying or going into work with? So that's where understanding what difference of emotions is critical, right? So that's a skill. So for example, I'm feeling excited, I'm eager, and I am feeling, let's say, a little bit of aggression.
Okay.
Right? He names those 3. Then I ask him to write down his thoughts. Okay, 1 thought. I'm going to win the day. That's usually what his thought goes to. Okay, now what are the behaviors that you want to go in? If you're thinking about your staff, you want to make sure that you're reverse engineering the outcomes, right, of the day. But now how do these feelings kind of come into play? All those 3 feelings, what is the behavior that you need to do or change or modify prior to going in so that you actually are efficacious, not only just with your feelings, but the unconscious feeling or the unconscious thoughts that are triggering your feelings. So essentially what that looked like for him behaviorally is, I need to do a quick body shakeout before I go in. I need to do some meditation. So he would do a 1-minute meditation in his car with a specific speaker that he adores. And that really helped him ground his nervous system so that he didn't show up just like at the throat type level communication that he was having with his staff members. And, you know, he said, Emilia, I still don't like these feelings things, but man, I'm having better communication with my staff. I'm noticing that they want to stick along here. And if he can have that level of impact on himself and his staff, which by the way, he also brought that into his family, and weird, good things started happening. Just that self-awareness, especially for men, is so critical.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for laying that out. It is so very powerful. There's actually a very interesting YouTube clip with the called the lady with the nail on the head. I don't know if you've seen it before, but she's trying to explain that she has a headache, and all he wants to point out, well, then pull the nail out of your head, and the headache will go away. All she wanted to be is, I want you to hear me. I want you to feel me. I want you to sense me. I don't want you to solve my problems. And that is something that is very different between, a men's brain and a woman's brain, like it or not. And I don't want to say everybody is the same way. I think over time I've become far more self-aware. But even I was out recently something that I need to work on myself and do a little deeper dive on that. So Listen, it's very valuable information. I love the fact that these actionable items, and it's the little things you can do for yourself that on a daily basis. Emilia, where can we find you to learn more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone that resonates with this can find me on Evolve Ventures podcast. That is where I go deep into the overlays of the neuroscience, the mental health, and the leadership. And I do that with my co-host Bianca, and we have a blast of a time. Definitely an acquired taste. Other than that, evolveventurestech.com.
Okay, very good. Listen, you have great energy, and hopefully you were centered today at a 5 to 7 and not to another 10 plus. But I really enjoy having you on the show today because I think it is something that people need to learn to address. It is important. I think the system on my dog is on fire. I've done about 100 of these. She has never acted like this, so you must be giving her.
She's feeling my energy.
I want to play with you too. Last comment and thought. What is a closing thought that somebody can take away to say, listen, let me hang on to this? Because it is important that we make things actionable to make it sustainable.
Of course. Yeah. Today, as you go into your workday, I want you to think about what signal might your feelings be trying to inform you with. That signal, it's not noise. It is actually some of the most powerful data you can listen to. How do you listen to that? Bring that into the 3 steps that I talked about with that client earlier. Just try that today, the next meeting that you go to. I know I'm still a pen and paper kind of gal. I write that down. It transforms the way in which I show up. And so please do that for yourself, for your family, for your team today. They all need it. We all need it.
I think that is rock star advice over there. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today. I really, really appreciate it. And I like your energy. And to the audience, again, listen, if you don't take an action on this, by tomorrow morning, you have forgotten about this. And there's no way that you can build sustainable habits and behaviors without actually doing it every day. Be critical of self. Don't punish yourself. And again, if you mess up this time, you can try again later on in the next conversation. So again, thank you very much for joining us in the show today. Go to thedutchmentor.com. I actually put in a companion app there. It's free for everybody that helps you actually, see what is my mood today and what are some of the things I can do to make sure that I can mitigate that, from soft music to breathing exercises to meditation, or even some somatic exercises. But it is important to be part, to allow yourself to feel. Have a wonderful day, Emilia. Thank you very much. You're a rock star.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the play with your dog.
Thank you.